Good afternoon, fifth grade. We are going to continue reading in our Civil War text. And today we're going to be comparing life in the North to life in the South during the war. But in our play posit, we are going to focus on Northern life. You have a quick write. It says, how do rivals view one another? What type of feelings do rivals have towards each other and why? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the vocabulary. Our focus question today is we want to find the main idea, and we also want to know how was Northern life and Southern life similar and different. Our vocabulary words are home front. That is the civilian population and activities of a nation where armed forces are engaged in war. All right, so this map would be an example of the home front. Yeah, sorry, this lady who's saying we can do it. She's a civilian who's been left on the home front to work in the factories to, make equipment for the soldiers. All right, so the home front is the part of the country where the war is not taking place. Everyone is at their home while their sons and their fathers are away at war. The second word is shortage. That's when you don't have enough of something. And you can draw a line to this picture that says do with less, so they'll have enough. So there were shortages in certain materials because they were using those materials to provide for equipment and food for the soldiers. So people on the home front had to do without certain materials so that the soldiers would have what they needed. And then the third one is frontier. That is a line or border that separates two countries. And so this would be an example of a frontier. This section over here on the right is what this was the United States during the Civil War. And this red part was the frontier. All right, turn the page, and you can go ahead and turn in your text to pages 46 and 47. And before we get started, we're going to ask a how or why question about the title. It says Northern Life. So the how question we could write is, how does the author describe Northern life? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to read. And as we're reading, we're going to underline the answer to this question. How does the author describe Northern life? Let's read. Citizens of New England and the Midwest are stunned when the Southern states left the Union. When the Confederates fired on Fort Sumter, that shock turned to anger. Many volunteered immediately to fight for the Union. But until July 1863, Union armies often lost on the battlefield. Through that period, the North's real success was on the home front. We're going to stop right there. We know July 1863, that was the Battle of Gettysburg, that was the Battle of Vicksburg, right? And so we know that the Union won both of those big battles, and it was a turning point in the Civil War. It says, through that period, the North's real success was on the home front. Industries in northern towns took on extra men, and in some places even employed women. After President Lincoln signed the Homestead Act of 1862, many immigrants headed west to make new homes on free frontier land. And if you go back in your vocabulary, this is the section where many immigrants began to move into that frontier land. Keep going. While Southerners were suffering food and clothing shortages, and their rebellious nation was shrinking in size daily, the Union was growing larger and richer. All right, so if we go back in that text, we know the author describes Northern Life as like successful, and it says it was growing larger and richer. So for our main idea, we would write life in the northern states was successful because the Union grew larger and richer. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for box 2. And for box 2, we're going to go to the top of page 47 and read the caption called Baseball. It says, organized baseball gathered a foothold during the Civil War years. That means it became popular. Northern towns had the peace, prosperity, and leisure time to establish simple baseball leagues. This is an 1864 photograph of the Brooklyn Atlantic's baseball team. The Atlantics had their team photographs mounted on cardboard. The photographs were passed around like modern-day baseball cards. All right, so number 2 says, what role did baseball play in the northern home front? And if we go back in our text, it tells us that it's a leisure activity. That means people played it because they wanted to be entertained. And we know that they were able to participate in this leisure activity because their cities were peaceful and prosperous. That means people had jobs and people were making and spending their money. So for the first part of box 2, we would write, baseball became a popular leisure activity in the North because the cities in the North were peaceful and prosperous. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the second part. It says, what did baseball symbolize during wartime? We know it tells us that they played baseball because they had time to, and people were happy, and it was peaceful. Even though there was a war going on, the war wasn't fought in the North. And so these people were able to go about their lives, and they were having a good time. So we would say in box 2, baseball symbolized a good and prosperous times in the North during the Civil War. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for box 3. For box 3, we're going to go to the middle of page 46 where it says a wishful cartoon. And we're going to look at this picture and read the caption. And if you notice, we have, this is Abraham Lincoln in the picture, and he has, some glue, and he's trying to repair this crack in the wall. And on one side of the wall, it says the North, and on the other side, it says the South. And so let's read the caption. President Lincoln was often teased in political cartoons, but sometimes he was praised. This cartoon, published shortly after his 1860 election victory, expressed the public's hope that the new leader could bring the nation back together. And so in box 3, it says, describe the political cartoon of President Lincoln. And we would say the political cartoon depicts Abraham Lincoln repairing a wall that has split in two. The wall represents the North and South. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the second part. We want to know what message is the author trying to communicate in the cartoon. And if Abraham Lincoln is repairing a wall between the North and the South, the author is trying to let us know that the North and the South, or the United States, is divided. And they are hoping that President Lincoln can repair the division or the argument. Okay, so in the second part of box 3, we would write, the author is trying to communicate that he believes that Abraham Lincoln can bring unity to the United States. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for box 4. It says a tool of Union victory. And the picture is this, this machine right here. Let's read the caption. It says, many historians claim Northern industry won the war for the Union. This wool carding machine from a factory in Pennsylvania made wool that could be turned into military uniforms. The South supplied manufacturers with raw materials, such as cotton, but it lacked large amounts of machinery and workers to make products for its own use. So in the first part it says, what role did machinery play in the Union war front? And if we go back in the text, it says that Northern industry actually helped win the war. So this industry or the machinery helped win the war. So in the first part of box 4, we would write, many historians claim Northern industry won the war for the Union. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the second part of box 4. It says, how was lack of machinery a disadvantage for the Southern war front? And if we go back in that caption, it says that the South had raw materials, but they didn't have the machines or the workers to turn those materials into something useful. So in box 4, we would write, the lack of machinery did not allow the South to quickly make uniforms and supplies for its soldiers. Without adequate supplies, the soldiers could not be as effective in battle. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. For the paragraph, we want to know, how does the author describe Northern life? And so you would use your main idea as your topic sentence, and then you would want to give examples and explain those examples from one of the other boxes.